Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of 15-Minute True Crime. So before we go ahead with episode 3, I just wanted to remind everybody to follow our Instagram page at 15minutetruecrime_YouTube, and I'll put the link to that below. So you guys voted for today's episode on the Instagram page, and the episode that the most people voted for was the case of Chris Watts. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's go. So, Shanann Watts, a brand promoter for the nutritional supplement company Lavelle, was constantly using her social media to promote her company's product by showing her followers how the product was improving the lives of herself and her family. Shanann's life looked beautiful and perfect through the lens of social media. She had a clean home, a happy family, and an amazing relationship with her husband. Shanann met her husband, Christopher Watts, in 2010, and they had 2 young daughters together, Bella and Celeste. But the morning after returning from a Lavelle conference in 2018, Shanann and her daughters were nowhere to be seen. On the local news station, Chris Watts begged for the return of his wife and daughters.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here.
But no more than a day after this plea, with Shanann, Bella, and Cece still missing, investigators would become suspicious of Chris's involvement in the disappearance. He would become the #1 suspect in a shocking, heartbreaking investigation that would send shockwaves through Colorado and through the rest of the United States. As always, let's start this case from the beginning. Christopher Watts was born on May 16, 1985 in Spring Lake, North Carolina. In 2010, Chris sent a Facebook request to Shanann Rosick, an Aberdeen, North Carolina native who was a year older than him. In a 30-minute-long Facebook Live interview in May of 2018, Shanann explained how she and Chris met. In her early 20s, Shanann suffered from lupus, a chronic illness which, according to the National Resource Center on Lupus, is an autoimmune disorder that causes inflammation and pain in any part of the body because the faulty immune system attacks healthy body tissue. On her Facebook Live video, Shanann said that before she met Chris, she was in a, quote, really bad place. But on the subject of meeting Chris, Shanann said, well, one thing led to another, and 8 years later, we have 2 kids, we live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Less than 2 years later, on November 3, 2012, Shanann and Chris were married. In 2013, the couple moved to a modern 5-bedroom home in Frederick, Colorado, a small town of about 13,000, 45 minutes outside of Denver. Shanann had always dreamed of becoming a mother, and the couple wasted no time in starting a family. In December 2013, their first daughter, Bella Marie Watts, was born, and shortly after, in July of 2015, their second daughter, Celeste Catherine Watts, nicknamed Cece, was born. On Facebook, Shanann praised Chris as a wonderful dad. She once wrote, "He takes care of us girls unconditionally." Chris worked at a petroleum company, making about $60,000 a year, and Shanann worked at the Colorado Children's Hospital in HR, and like I mentioned earlier, she also worked for the multi-level marketing company Lavelle, selling their Thrive nutritional supplements. But even so, this picture-perfect family had their fair share of economic troubles. By 2015, the family was $70,000 in debt from credit card bills, medical bills, and student loans, and the couple was forced to file for bankruptcy. Another issue that the family faced was Shanann's fertility issues, which stemmed from her lupus diagnosis. So both of her pregnancies with Bella and Cece had been high risk. And according to a Facebook post by Shanann's brother Frankie, the family was overjoyed when it was found out that Shanann could sustain a pregnancy against all odds. Despite these difficulties, Shanann decided that her family was not yet complete after she'd had Cece and Bella. Texts between Shanann and her friends showed that Chris, however, was apprehensive about having a 3rd child. Even so, Shanann announced her 3rd pregnancy to Chris on June 11, 2018, and Chris seemed genuinely excited.
We did it again. I like that shirt. Pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know. Just the test.
That's awesome.
The couple soon found out that they were expecting a boy in January 2019, and their son was given the name Nico Lee Watts. Shortly after this pregnancy reveal, Shanann, Bella, and Cece left Colorado for 5 weeks to visit her family in North Carolina on June 27, 2018. Meanwhile, Chris stayed at home to continue working at the petroleum plant. While Shanann and the girls were in North Carolina, texts between Shanann and her friends show evidence that her marriage with Chris was crumbling. On August 8th, Shanann wrote, "He said we're not compatible anymore. He refused to hug me, said he thought another baby would fix his feelings." It would be impossible for Shanann to know how truly in jeopardy her marriage was while she and her daughters were in North Carolina. According to a detailed timeline of this case on Insider.com, on June 14th, 2 short weeks before Shanann and the girls left for North Carolina, Chris entered Nicole Kessinger's contact information on his cell phone. Nicole was a single coworker a few years younger than Chris, who, I guess I'll just spoil this now because it's a pretty big part of the case. Nicole would become Chris's mistress. The relationship moved quickly, and Nicole soon learned that Chris was married with children. Desperate to save his skin, Chris lied to Nicole and told her that he and Shanann were in the process of separating. Shanann had no clue about all these relationship troubles, and around the same time, she posted a Father's Day tribute to Chris, writing, "Chris, we are so incredibly blessed to have you. You do so much every day for us, and you take great care of us. You are the reason I was brave enough to agree to number 3. By July 2018, Chris was already spending most of his time with Nicole. The new couple celebrated 4th of July together, and they began dating seriously. They spent their time working out, hiking, and constantly talking on the phone. On July 14th, Chris took Nicole on a date to a vintage car museum, and while on this date, Chris missed 4 phone calls from his wife Shanann, who was still in North Carolina visiting her family. But anyway, it was finally time for Chris to make the trip to North Carolina to join Shanann and his daughters for the rest of the family vacation. But beforehand, Chris took Nicole on an overnight camping trip, and he left her a lengthy love letter. Chris and Shanann's reunion in North Carolina was not quite a happy one. In August, Shanann and Chris got in a large fight, which is documented in text messages sent to Chris from Shanann. While caring for Cece and Bella, Shanann's parents had exposed Cece to nuts while giving the girls a snack. According to Shanann, Cece had a mild nut allergy, and Shanann was extremely upset that Chris hadn't gotten angrier at his in-laws for this mistake. As the Wattses prepared to leave North Carolina, Chris and Shanann continued to fight. In yet another text to her friends, Shanann explained that she decided to cancel the gender reveal party for her 3rd baby because she and Chris were becoming so distant. Soon after, the Watts family returned to their home, and Shanann left for a short business trip to Arizona for the multi-level marketing company that she worked for. Shanann was fighting hard to save her marriage, and she left Chris a love letter about how much she missed him during their time apart that summer. But obviously, this letter had no effect on Chris. He was already madly in love with Nicole, and while Shanann was away on her business trip, he hired a babysitter to watch Cece and Bella while he took Nicole on a date. At 1:48 a.m. on the morning of August 13th, 2018, Shanann arrived home from her business trip after getting a ride home from her best friend, Nicole Atkinson. So Atkinson plays a role in this case, and so that we don't confuse her with Chris's mistress, Nicole Kessinger, I'm going to refer to Nicole Atkinson by her last name for the rest of the video. The next morning, after returning from her business trip, Shanann was supposed to have an OBGYN appointment. However, she did not show up to this appointment or even call to cancel. And this was really out of character for Shanann because she took her prenatal care incredibly seriously as a result of her lupus diagnosis and having had 2 high-risk pregnancies already. Additionally, Atkinson was unable to reach Shanann for the entire day, so wasting no time, Atkinson reported Shanann missing at 1:40 p.m. that day. When Atkinson arrived at the Watts' home, her suspicion only continued to grow. The police arrived quickly to do a welfare check on the Watts home, and once inside, they found that Shanann's phone, purse, keys, and wedding ring were still inside the house. Additionally, her car was still in the driveway, even though Shanann, Cece, and Bella were nowhere to be seen. The next day, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the FBI joined in on this investigation. This was also the day that Chris made his plea on the local news for his family to return, which is the video that I showed in the beginning of this episode. Even before Chris made this plea, police were already suspicious of his story in which he said that Shanann and the girls had left while he was at work that day. On the evening of August 15th, investigators performed a polygraph test on Chris. Chris failed the polygraph test, but in a last-ditch effort to save himself, he told police that he strangled Shanann as an act of revenge after she'd strangled Bella and Cece after Chris had asked her for a divorce. But this alibi too would quickly crumble and reveal Chris as just honestly the true monster that he is. After police struggled to accept Chris's story of revenge on Shanann, Chris asked to speak with his father, Ronnie Watts.
And then I would tell her, your girl.
After confessing to his father, Chris Watts confessed to police that he and Shanann had gotten into an argument where he told Shanann that he did not love her, and she in turn told Chris that he would never see the children again. According to the Insider.com timeline that I've been referencing for this case, Shanann accused Chris of cheating, and shortly after, Chris strangled Shanann. Heartbreakingly, 4-year-old Bella Watts woke up to the commotion of her parents fighting and her mother's murder. Shanann had already been strangled by this point, and Bella walked in and asked her father what was wrong with her mother. So Chris Watts, who honestly, you're just gonna see he's a horrible, ugly, stupid piece of shit, he told his little daughter that her mother was sick and needed to go to the hospital. So he wrapped Shanann's body in a bedsheet and loaded it into the car along with Cece and Bella. This piece of shit drove these little girls to a petroleum site where he worked and honestly did the unspeakable. Chris strangled 3-year-old Cece with a blanket, and as he did this, 4-year-old Bella begged her father for her life. But Bella was strangled shortly after by her father, who she loved and looked up to, as you can see in videos on Shanann's Facebook that are literally just too sad for me to include in this. Chris then put both of his daughters' bodies in oil tanks, and he dug a shallow hole nearby where he buried Shanann. After confessing this, Chris was promptly arrested and fired from his job at Anadarko Petroleum. The next day, on August 16th, the bodies were found with the help of a drone. On August 21st, Shanann's family cried in agony as Chris Watts was charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 for Shanann and 2 for both Cece and Bella because they're children under 12 years old. He was also charged with the unlawful termination of a pregnancy for the murder of his unborn son, Nico. One interesting player in this case is certainly Chris's mistress, Nicole Kessinger. It seemed as if Nicole was unaware of Chris's plot to murder his family before he actually did it. However, after it happened, Nicole displayed some really weird behavior. On August 19th, a few days after Chris had been charged, Nicole Googled, "Did people hate Amber Frey?" And if you don't know, here's why this is significant. Amber Frey was the mistress of a man named Scott Peterson, who was an infamous murderer who killed his pregnant wife, Lacey Peterson, back in 2002. Obviously, there are some parallels between that case and this case, but otherwise, Nicole seemed to cooperate with investigators in the case against Chris. And since the murders, Nicole has received multiple threats, and by the end of 2018, she moved away, changed her name, and has entered the Witness Protection Program. As for Chris Watts, he pled guilty on November 6, 2018 to all of the charges against him. In a move that really honestly surprised me, Shanann's family actually asked that Chris not be sentenced to death. The court respected this decision, and on November 19th, Chris received 5 life sentences for the 5 counts of first-degree murder, 48 years for unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 36 years for 3 counts of tampering with a dead body. Today, Chris is currently housed in a maximum security prison in Waupun, Wisconsin, which that's literally like an hour from my house. So like I said in another episode, a lot of weird true crime things seem to go down in Wisconsin. So yeah, that's all for the case of Chris Watts, who many people refer to as a family annihilator, because yeah, that's what he is. I found this case just to be so incredibly sad and disturbing, especially if you look at the articles and Facebook posts from Shanann about just how much the wife and daughters loved him. It's super tragic and super heartbreaking, and it was kind of hard for me to research this case at times. But anyway, I would like to thank the people that voted for this case on the Instagram page, as well as everybody watching my videos and following our Instagram page. I really enjoy making these, and I really, really, really appreciate and enjoy seeing everybody's comments and feedback. This is the last video that I'm going to be filming at my house because in 3 days I'm going to be going back to college, so there might be a little bit more time between this 3rd episode and the 4th episode just to figure out the logistics of where and when I'm going to film and write a new script, but I'm definitely hoping to continue this series as I go back to college because I really do enjoy making it for you guys. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and More importantly, comment your feedback down below. Comment what cases you'd love to see next. Down below, I have a link to the Instagram page and a link to all of the articles and resources I used for this case. This case certainly has a lot more depth to it than what I'm able to share in 15 minutes, so I would definitely recommend reading some of those articles, especially the first two, which I used extensively for this case. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching. As always, I really, really appreciate it, and I'll hopefully see you guys soon in episode 4. Peace.